Hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel, Poverty Hill Adventures. Today's video, I'm going to talk a little bit about primitive archery events and the type of equipment that is generally acceptable at a primitive only archery event. Each event is unique. Each event has their own set of rules, but this is a general information video for those of you who are just starting out, and perhaps some of the terminology or the rules, regulations, whatever, are a little bit confusing. So I wanted to take just a little bit of time to explain what is generally acceptable at a primitive only archery event, whether it be a living history rendezvous or a archery only event, whatever. So make sure that you check with whoever's organizing the event prior to going there, but these are some general guidelines. As far as bows go, there always seems to be a little confusion with newcomers as to what is a primitive bow. What is a primitive bow? And a lot of times, newcomers will show up with a traditional bow, with a traditional laminated bow, and it looks very similar to a primitive bow, and I can understand how they get confused. A traditional laminated bow is exactly that. It is a bow made up of laminations of wood or fiberglass, combination of the two, but there's layers of material that are all glued together, and although it looks very similar to a primitive bow is made up of just one piece of wood. Now sometimes they'll have a splice in the handle, and the upper limb and the lower limb will be made of one piece of wood, and it is spliced together at the handle. That is, for a lot of times, acceptable. Sometimes that primitive bow, which is referred to as a self bow, made out of all one piece of wood, sometimes it is backed with natural materials such as sinew, rawhide, linen, and that is for the most part acceptable. You want to check with the event, but most of the time they'll accept a backed bow. But the difference between a primitive self bow and a laminated traditional bow, whether it be a modern traditional bow or a vintage traditional bow, is not the shape. It's not. It is what the bow is, or how the bow is constructed and what it's made of. So that is a little bit about bows. Now let's talk a little bit about arrows and what's acceptable as far as arrows go. A lot of times what will happen is somebody's shooting a primitive bow, they're shooting a self bow, and they're shooting a modern shaft arrow with a plastic nock. And although they shoot just fine out of a primitive self bow, for the most part, most events will not consider this a primitive arrow. So what is a primitive arrow? Well, it gets a little gray there. Some folks start talking about just wood arrows, and this is a wood arrow here, cedar shaft. However, it has a plastic knock on it, and again, plastic knock more than likely is not acceptable at a primitive only event. It may at some events may, but most of them it's not acceptable for equipment, especially some of the primitive rendezvous and such. Plastic knocks are a no-no. So it comes to what is acceptable. Well, most will accept a wooden shaft, self-knock arrow, meaning that the knock is cut into the shaft, natural feathers. Most events will allow this. Although this is not a 100% primitive arrow, it is a primitive style arrow. This shaft here happens to be store-bought cedar shaft, and to be a true primitive arrow, and again this depends on just how strict the event is, you would more than likely have to enter with something like a river cane arrow or a viburnum shoot arrow. Again, how strict the event is, check with them as far as the rules. I hope this short video here answers some newcomers' questions as far as equipment for a primitive only shoot. I certainly do not want to discourage anyone from attending a primitive shoot. Most will be very welcoming, and they'll certainly, most will make exceptions for children. Kids shooting can, for the most part, shoot a more modern bow, probably not a compound, but something like just a laminated longbow. Arrows, they might be a little more forgiving as far as that when it comes to children. A lot of events will welcome a newcomer and perhaps even allow a first-timer to shoot a little more modern of equipment. Probably not in competitions and such, but I don't want any of this to discourage anyone from attending a primitive only event. For safety reasons, most primitive archery shoots require you to shoot what is called a field point. That's a target point, as opposed to a broadhead, which is used in hunting. So make sure to check, but I would say that 99.9% require a field point at their event. So make sure your arrows have a field point on them. Another item that I want to mention is a lot of primitive events have what they call a visitor's day, and if you're just starting out and you want to learn more, or maybe you got a little interest in attending a primitive rendezvous or a primitive archery event, and they have a visitor's day, it might be in your interest to stop by on that visitor's day. walk around, talk to people. For the most part, you're going to find people at these events to be very friendly and very willing to share their knowledge with a newcomer and encourage you. So I would mention that you might want to consider going to a visitor's day. Also, where to find the equipment. Now you can make your own bow, make your own arrows. There's videos on it, there's books on it, there are classes on it, on making your own equipment. That's an option. You can also purchase arrows and bows at many of these primitive events. There might be somebody there selling some equipment. So don't let any of that stuff stop you. You know, it's a lot of fun. It's quite a challenge shooting primitive equipment, and I hope to see you out there at some primitive archery events. Let's go outside and shoot. There's no pressure at all. We got I don't know, about 3 feet of snow on the ground, so if I miss the target, it's going to be May before I find it. So, but a little pressure is good, right? A little pressure is good for practice. So until next time, everybody, take care. Thank you for watching. Remember to keep on trucking and believe in yourself even when no one else does.